Here is Tobie.
Hi, friend. Oh my gosh, it's so fun to see you.
It's great to see you too. Here we are. This is always so
I
funny.
know this is my first Instagram live, so thanks for sharing this
Ye-
with me.
Yes, of course. Thank you for being willing to go into the unknown together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, just to give everyone a a little orientation as to what we're doing here today. So, Tobie and I are part of the team along with Amy Wright Glenn. And we have been organizing international birth, breath, and death study trips. And we are getting ready to go on our fourth trip. We do one every year. And the intention of today is connecting about where did this even come from? You know, what dreams came together? Amy had her dreams, I had mine, and Tobie had hers. And so somehow life brought us together and we've been able to fulfill this dream. And we're very excited about the potential and possibility of such experiences. And so I will just tell you very quickly a little bit about Tobie. So Tobie is the director and founder of Be Humanitarian. And you will tell us more about that. And so Tobie organizes trips for community service and outreach and other ways of volunteering and supporting communities. And I think in the simplest way, I've just always had an interest in learning from other humans and how we do our birthing, our living, and our dying. Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a perfect synopsis of your life. The interest in how people live, get born, and die. Um, okay, so do you want me to say a little bit about Be Humanitarian?
Yes, please.
Um, We have been working in Guatemala for nearly 13 years. So we're privileged to be able to support a community there. And we've got a community of kiddos and families that we're supporting to make sure that they are fed and educated and supported and loved. And I've decided to work with families instead of orphanages, specifically to bring support to the family unit. I noticed throughout our years of work and traveling that a lot of children have living parents, although they're living in an orphanage.
Mm,
And um, I didn't, as a mom myself, I just couldn't fathom ever having to make that decision, to ask myself, like, well, can I feed my child? Or should I send them and place them in an orphanage to be raised by someone else? So that is the reason, that's the core reason that we work with families. Specifically, most of our families are single moms. And
mhm,
so that we're supporting them so that they don't have to ask them, so, they don't have to ask that question of themselves.
thank you. Yeah, so I met Tobie through Amy, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Amy and I met in Maui at the death doula training of Doorway into Light with Bodhi B. And we connected very deeply then, and for many different reasons. We're interested in, birth and death and how those two things are connected, how those two portals of existence inform one another. And we started collaborating and supporting each other. We're both writers, and so we started having writing evenings together online. And then started to think about how else we could collaborate and how could I support her, how could she support me. And in many of the conversations, we came down to recognizing this thing we had in common, which is we want to learn from communities, from the people who have been doing this through their traditions and not necessarily through the systems, how to birth and how to die and honor that it is a natural process, it is a human process. And then see what we have forgotten, right? Because there are things that as humans we've been doing since the dawn of time, but as we've gotten more sophisticated, we have sort of turned away or walked away or whatever from the way we know intuitively how to hold space for those portals and through life, because we are in some ways having symbolic deaths and rebirths throughout life.
Yeah.
And so as we started fantasizing and dreaming together, we connected with Tobie, and the rest is history. So tell us a little bit about your connection with Amy and how you came into this picture.
Okay. So Amy and I've known her since I was born because our parents are siblings. So her dad and my mom are siblings. And Amy was always a big sister to me. She was, just the coolest big sister and just somebody I always trusted. And she is the reason that I got into birth work in the first place. I just remember so vividly like a phone call. She's like, okay, I found the perfect career for you. I was like, okay, what is it? And she's like, you need to be a birth doula. I was like, okay, that sounds great. And I've, been doing birth work for 18 years um, because of that. And so that is our connection is from birth. And then our souls have always loved to travel. Like throughout life, we've always met each other in different locations. If she was living somewhere, like her and her sisters, we would all go and visit and travel, like explore that location with her. And so then I just kept asking her if we could take her institute to Guatemala. And I really didn't expect for it to go further than just Guatemala. Because I was really comfortable in Guatemala. I just was like, hey, like if you bring the people, I can put this together and we can have this really cool experience and we can meet with the, guides of the dying and we can meet with the local midwives and we can put this really cool thing together. And it was her that suggested to me that I needed to meet this woman named Wilka Roig. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. And yeah, I mean, really, like, I just think it was supposed to, in my mind, it was going to be like a one and done.
Mhm.
Then the first year was so beautiful and such like an amazing experience. And not just for the participants that were there, but I felt like such a deep connection to the work and to the people, to the whole group. It was just such a beautiful group of people. And so then we just were like, okay, this was a hit. Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
Yeah, and that trip was amazing because we were able to connect with midwives and muerteras of the community and even a Tihash, which is like the priest, because it's not really a word that is translatable, of their Mayan community. And the the opportunity to learn from them and to listen to them and to understand something that is so inherent in us, we're just a little disconnected from it, was just, it was life changing for me.
Mm.
And, y la otra cosa es que Toby habla perfecto español.
Perfecto. No, pues un poco sí.
Bastante, bastante. Y that is so wonderful because, there's something about being able to sort of, it's not just a language thing, for sure. I think we have to have a disposition. I think the work of birth and death puts us in that place of the in between. And so we are able to connect as humans regardless of language. It's beyond language, really. And, I personally find that when we are multilingual, we have a greater facility to let go of concepts from one language and one culture to be able to enter into the universe of the other.
Mm.
And so that was something that we were able to experience together. And I my conviction is that our willingness to be able to create that space and encourage people to move past or beyond the limits of language and understanding is part of what we have an act to do. So
It's such a
yeah.
beautiful way that you just expressed that. It was, yeah. To be able to enter, because it isn't just language, but be able to enter somebody else's universe. Some, to be in their orbit, and it doesn't matter about words.
Yeah, and so then after we did that one, then very quickly it came together to do the next one. So far we've been to Guatemala, to Ireland, and to Mexico, and we are getting ready to go to Puerto Rico. Which is my island, and I'm so excited to make those connections and discover what is happening there. As you know, as some of you may know, Tobie, I'm organizing a death awareness tour for Puerto Rico that begins in late February. So we're going to be doing a month long of outreach and connecting with communities, and that will greatly enrich our journey in June.
Yeah.
But let's see. So, how did this continue for you, like after Guatemala?
Well, I don't know. Great question. I think just the sisterhood between you and Amy and I was just so beautiful. And the I remember you saying, like, I don't often get a chance to have sisters. And
Like
I,
never.
yeah, like ever. And I remember feeling that same way. Although I have birth sisters that are dear and dear to me, this is a sister of a different kind, like of a different way of being held in sisterhood. And so for me, it was just a matter of being able to share the orbit and to be able to like collaborate and create something beautiful with the both of you. That was just exciting and inspiring. And so then I remember us having a conversation, and all of us were like, what if we did this for the rest of our lives? And then we're like, okay, let's do it. Let's do it for the rest of our lives. Because such deep, beautiful growth and connection occurs in this really sacred bond that is, that is our time together. And it's the learning that we get to do. And it's just like it feels like a sacred practice to me.
Yes, and I find that the art of, a friend of mine calls it, a colleague of mine calls it transpersonal travel,
Mm-hmm.
is that to be able to be willing consciously and intentionally to leave what is known and go into a journey of the unknown and the uncertain and the unfamiliar with, flexibility and receptivity and openness, and cultivating curiosity and, wishing to discover something new, and our capacity to be in awe of whatever is, arising. From the moment we leave our homes, we're already mindful that we are going on a journey that we can only discover
Right.
through going every step of the way, and of, again, like letting go of who we think we are and the roles we play, and just discover ourselves in this community that is very organic, because every year there are some people who come and return and some people who are new. And how can we be in, siblinghood together? How can we find our place within a community together, right? So a big part of that journey is inward,
Right.
and then in the circle of those who are present, and then expanding that out into the communities that we visit and the people we come and learn from. Yeah, it's a transformative experience to let go. It's a disidentifying of many things and this openness to learn more. And and I just have to say that the sisterhood thing for me is very special and unique. I learned so much about myself. I'm a ¿cómo se llama? A single child. I'm an only child. I don't know what the right term is. And and I was alone for a long part of my formative years. And so to be able to open up to the experience of having sisters and sharing rooms and having very unique experiences in foreign places,
Hmm.
and also of how do we navigate holding space for a group, so all of those things are just so valuable
Right.
that yes, we're definitely doing this for the rest of our lives as much as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like this fun, beautiful, transformative aspect of like girls' camp, or summer camp, where like a bunch of people get together. And but there's like very few similarities, I would argue, like as far as like, many of us, there's professionals, there's death doulas and birth doulas and psychiatrists and psychologists and social workers and nurses, and like, we aren't all from the same conglomeration of people.
Mm-hmm.
Like we are not all from the same place, which I think is very beautiful, and it can be such a learning experience to meet people from other parts of the country, other religious backgrounds, other cultures, other languages, that are all interested and open to this
Mm-hmm.
to this experience.
Mm-hmm. And the combination of travel, transpersonal intentional travel, everything we've already said, and diving deep into the cosmovisions of how other people, other cultures, other areas relate to birthing and
Right.
dying, relate to being mortal beings, relate to nature. We've learned so much about human relationship to nature through the lens of these different cultures.
Right.
Um, yeah.
I know, and there are multiple lenses, which I think is cool, and that's why it is such like an interesting but very different kind of atmosphere. It's such a wide scope. We're not like narrowly looking at just one thing. Like our scope is so wide. I remember like when Amy and I were brainstorming about this, I'm like, I wasn't sure how I fit in. And I remember like thinking, well, you were holding the death piece, she's holding the birth piece. I was like, but where do I fit? And she's like, Tobie, you are the breath piece. And I was
Uh-huh.
like, how fun is that? Like, that is the coolest, just like that we all, in our own ways, are holding these spheres for each other. And there's no ego with,
Mm-hmm.
involved. It's just very transparent and very positive. Like, we're all holding up each other as individuals and as a group and as a community.
Yes, it is also a cultivation of humility in the best ways, right? It's facilitated in a way to be collaborating and knowing that each of us has our own contribution to it, and at the same time that we're completely open to what actually happens, because
Right.
there's a plan, and then there's, like with birth and with death, you may have a plan, but then what's supposed to happen is what unfolds, and how do we hold space for that? The other thing that I wanted to mention here is that we bring the symbolic, and we bring dream work into the space as well, and that also helps us to facilitate and hold that space of inquiry, that space of curiosity, that space of awe and meaning making, and sort of transformation, as we mentioned, right? So yeah, it's truly magical.
It is. Yeah. And then also on top of that, we get to support communities
Mm-hmm.
that are less fortunate. And that is definitely a piece that's very important to all of us. So then, and I think those are the experiences that are so where you're talking about like awe, like it's so rare. Oftentimes, I remember several of our participants from our last year saying that they did, like, when was the last time they got to play on a playground and run around with kids, like at a
Mm-hmm.
preschool that with these darling kiddos. And that was the nonprofit that we supported during that trip. And just to be able to, like, that's going out of such a norm. If you're a 50-year-old or a 40-year-old and you're child free, and then to be able to just jump into this playground and be a kid again,
Mm-hmm.
like it was just so beautiful. Like I remember our last dance at this preschool. We had had such a beautiful day, and I just remember tears streaming down my face. Like it was just to see all of us in this group with the music blaring, and just that this culmination of the work that we had done. It was just so
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, and I can't wait to share it again.
Yeah, and again, this capacity to cultivate, well, the cultivation of our capacity to connect from that place that where we are all equal, like we said, beyond language and culture, just as humans, humans who birth, live, and are going to die, and that we bring that to those spaces, and I just want to highlight the fact that, yes, as you mentioned, every trip focuses on supporting a nonprofit in the place where we go, so that in whatever way they can receive support, we figure it out, and then we collaborate, and that's also really beautiful because we're doing service work. And so it's not just for whatever benefit we might have from having an experience in some other place,
Yeah.
but also what we give back. So that's another thing that we focus on, is this reciprocity, right? That we don't just go, but that we also give. Yeah.
And that's an important piece. And you and I definitely agree on that. But that's a very important piece in travel, instead
Mm-hmm.
to not just be the taker,
Mm-hmm.
like, but to get invested and be, curious about the people that live in this place you are
Mm-hmm.
visiting, and to know a little bit more about their lives. And then on the top of that, to see how you can improve and leave the place better than you found it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. So let's see. So we're gonna do a few of these kinds of lives, and next time Amy will join us as well. And so we'll dive a little deeper in conversation about our dreams and our visions and our intentions and what we've learned. There's so much. I think we could do like a whole series of just what we've learned.
Yeah.
Um, because we are really connecting with traditions of the places and the people who have been sustaining those original traditions, as much as we can preserve them and as much as they evolve anyway through history and everything. So we have learned some amazing things from how humans birth, live, die, approach it, make sense of it, prepare for it, collaborate with nature around it. So we're going to be talking about those things. Is there anything else that we need to say right now, Tobie?
Um, that anyone that wants to can reach out if they've got questions, like reach out to Amy Wilka or myself. And that we've got a website with a lot of further information. And we just rented a beautiful space, like just such a beautiful space, such a welcoming space. And that's one thing that's, I think, sets us apart. I think a lot of people might do a trip, and they'll go to like their own hotel room, and,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll eat maybe as a group. But this is like a full, full collaboration of who we are. So we stay in the same place. You might room with somebody that you have never met before. So there's some beautiful deep dive of, learning about somebody new in that experience. And then we eat together and do movement together and study together and learn together and explore together. So I think
Mm-hmm.
also that there's some very cool aspects to that as well, that it's not, it is like an internal experience and also a very external experience where you get to really deep go deep with this group of individuals.
Yes, yes. The word that comes to mind is immersive because, we immerse ourselves in our own inner journey and we hold space for that. We immerse ourselves in the exploration in community and the holding space together in community. And of course, everybody brings their own what they contribute, but also whatever they're working through. And we have beautiful spaces for process and for sort of, as you said, moving together and moving things through us together. And then we also have that immersion into the culture and into the traditions and into learning about where we go. Oh, another thing that I would like to say is that before we go, we actually prepare, right? So not only are we preparing ourselves for this journey, but we are also preparing, informing ourselves, becoming familiar with where we're going and the culture there and all of that, because we like to be self-aware and self-reflexive and self-responsible in these journeys.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we're open to questions. If you've got questions, we want to hear from you. Our travel dates will always be June 1st through the 9th.
Mm-hmm.
So the first week of June. So keep that in mind, that we will not be changing those dates. So if this year doesn't work out and you have interest, then we still don't know. Next year is a mystery. We don't know where we're going next year. So still reach out. We're happy to answer questions.
All right, so I think this is it for today, and we will continue our conversations. And the other thing I want to say about Tobie, Amy, and myself is that we are all very approachable and very accessible, and we love to have conversations. And, even if a trip is not anywhere in the future, conversing and connecting and supporting one another is super important to us. So any person who feels connected to who we are, what we do, and our life missions, um, we're here for you.
Absolutely. Thank you, dear friend. So
Thank
fun to
you.
see you. Talk soon.
Bye.